All right, everybody, time for our new album reviews of the week. Before we get into it, though, remember to hit that subscribe button. Make sure to drop us a comment in the comment section below and let us know if you agree with us or if you don't agree with us. Were we right? Were we wrong? All that good stuff. Jeffrey, I'll hand it off to you. Bring us on in, man.
Our first new album review this week is by English singer and musician PJ Harvey. The album is entitled I Inside the Old Year Dying. This is PJ Harvey's 10th studio album. It's produced by Harvey alongside her longtime collaborators Flood and John Parrish. It is inspired by her epic poem entitled Orlam. It has lots of nods to Shakespeare and like nursery rhymes and British Isles folkiness. PJ Harvey is known for kind of being somewhere in the like avant-garde singer-songwriter, a little bit of Riot Girl, a little bit like Fiona Apple type of thing. This is a very mature album. This is her first album, I believe, in like 7 years. I enjoy this album a lot. This is a I don't know how you'd say it. Mature, kind of like muted, but interesting, kind of very artistic, full statement of an album. What did you guys think about this album?
This is my first dive into PJ Harvey. I wanted to kind of review this album to see like what was going on. I see a lot of people post and listen to her albums all the time. This album is a very like subdued kind of thing. It has its rises and its falls, but kind of sits in that very subdued area. Very, very dense lyrically. It is super dense lyrically. One of the most interesting lyrical albums I think I've ever listened to. It has callbacks from the first song all the way to the last song and everywhere in between. The love interest that I believe is the love interest in here is being related to Elvis and Love Me Tender and this idea, and that gets strung in and out. I don't know if I like love this style of music, but the style of lyricism is really, really, really intriguing. And then it like ABs this like highbrow, folky witch tale, spooky kind of imagery with very plain language about like Pepsi and banana sandwiches and Elvis and like kind of like those feelings. And I feel like the A and B of those really work well and make quite like the artsy fartsy record that I really kind of enjoyed. And it's not something to like it's hard to review because I think it's like one of those records that you're gonna dive into way deeper later.
Yeah, I think you're, as well as like Luke said, this was also my first go at PJ Harvey, even though she's been around since, what did he say, like 91 or something like 90s. That, early 90s, which was kind of like threw me off because I was like, oh, really? It's been around for that long. Yeah, this record was kind of a hard one for me. The first time I listened to it, I found that I didn't really connect with it very much. I didn't really... I don't know. It's hard to say because I can't say that I didn't like it as much as I can say that like... It made me feel a way that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but I don't think that like counts against an album. You know what I'm trying to say? Like I think like an album is supposed to evoke whatever emotions that it's supposed to evoke, and maybe sort of like negative feelings or feelings of anxiety or something like that is like what she's trying to go for. So I can't really count that against this record. I don't know if that was the ultimate goal or the vision for the listener to experience sort of what I experienced listening to it. But I did find upon further listens, I listened to this about 4 times, that it started growing on me. I think the things that I initially wasn't a huge fan of, which was sort of like, those kind of strange sort of sounds that kind of like come in and out and sort of weave in all these weird like modulation-y type things, and like the crazy like the ceiling is like 1,000,000 feet tall sort of echo and delay and like all this crazy stuff that sort of made me feel anxious, I think, at first. Kind of wore me down by the 4th listen, and I was like, oh, I can kind of get it because it really is like it's a very immersive listen. You're like in the PJ Harvey universe, and you're like, okay, well, I'm in here, so I might as well get comfy, And then if you kind of stretch out a little bit in this record, I find you can kind of find like a nice little corner in the room to kind of settle in with it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to what you're speaking to is, if this album came out like the first week of November, I think we'd all feel a lot different about it. This is the middle of July. It's 90 degrees during the day, and this is very much a like folksy fall type of feeling that it evokes. And also sound-wise, that you said, I thought it sounded very much like it tricks you into thinking like, oh, this sounds like 3 or 4 collaborators playing and singing in a room. And then you realize there's all these droney things in the mix. There's all these subtle things going on. It's very much like a headphones album with a lot of textures, because songs will end and trail off and it'll have some like bubbling, gurgling type of thing that was in there the whole time. And you're like, oh, I didn't realize that's part of the song.
Right.
Too, about like the production style, the drums on this, Jeff, I kind of pictured you loving them the whole time because they are like the loudest, softest drums.
Yes.
It's you can tell they're playing very, very soft.
Yeah.
But in the mix, it's like the drums are almost the loudest thing in every single song. I think like moving like the rhythm along, and it's not doing like anything like really like bombastic, but it's just like a lot of driving forward in a slow kind of stomping motion, and it's like the loudest, softest drums. It's like, how did they record these?
Yeah, it sounds like it's played extremely sensitively, but then because everything's like compressed and pushed up slightly in the mix, it just has all this little the natural squeakiness and whatever room sound stuff.
Absolutely.
As far as this album is 12 tracks long. It's 40 minutes. My history with PJ Harvey, I started listening to her music when I was like 19 in college, specifically because she had, I think at the time, 3 albums that were in the Rolling Stone Top 500 Albums list. That's the albums Rid of Me, To Bring You My Love, and Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea. She's also an artist who has won the coveted Mercury Prize twice for Stories from the City, Stories from the Sea, and Let England Shake. The Mercury Prize is the best album in the British and Irish Isles every year. So she is like a big figure, especially I think over in England and in the UK. I think this is so different than anything else I've heard from her because when there's electric guitar on this album, it's like, is this electric guitar or is this kind of like a synth sound that's making it kind of sound like electric guitar? I wasn't quite sure a lot of the time. I liked a lot of this album, especially, I say especially, and then I look at my list and it's like, I liked a lot of this album. But the songs, I really liked Autumn Term.
Oh, I loved Autumn Term.
Which has like a lot of the album, this like kind of rustic drums, acoustic guitar type of picking. There's these kid playing sounds that weave in. There's these like walls of drones. I really like the next song. I believe I'll say it's called Lonesome Tonight. Another song that has, it's a lot of fingerstyle acoustic on this album. A lot of like drone kind of electric guitar or synths. A lot of that like skittery, not propulsive, but like constant rhythm thing. Like this remind me a lot, if you're a fan of the Radiohead most recent album, A Moon-Shaped Pool. It's very much like that, and she is a collaborator of those guys. So
shout out to the spelling of lonesome as well on there. And
that must be a Shakespeare thing or something.
It's so good.
I don't know.
It's almost like a little kiddish, like the way it's spelled out. And this song, for me lyrically, is the whole album in a nutshell for me. It's the first half of the song is dense, very dense, like poetry. That's like all like wooden, and like I think there's a line about squirrels in there or something. And then the second half is juxtaposed with normal stuff: peanut butter sandwiches, Pepsi, and a kiss that doesn't like come back. Like she goes to give like a lover a kiss, and the kiss is pulled away. And the first half, then afterwards you're like, oh, was the first half her like poetic, inner poetic thoughts about this man, and then it goes to the real scene. And for me, that's this album in a nutshell. It's doing that whole astral thing and then coming back to like normal stuff, and then astral stuff, and then like normal things. So in this song, I think it's a really good what the album's about.
Yeah, I liked what I thought was cool with this record too was it seemed like sort of, so you have all of these sort of flourishes of this and that, like in there's weird sort of like in the song August where it's like there's a percussion hit, but it's like it's like
yes,
you get stuff like that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But what's cool, and I think a cool thing that she did was it's almost like that acoustic guitar that's kind of like this thread that's threaded throughout is like the one straight thing that's through it all. So like that's the one thing that like is never really hit with crazy effects or anything like that. And there's all this other. So there's like that. I like that there's this one consistent sort of, this is an acoustic guitar kind of sprinkled in here, and it's always just like straight up. But yeah, songs wise, I loved A Noiseless Noise, the last song. I thought that was
last song
so
was
dope.
my favorite song.
Yeah, and that's the
I think that
only
was my
song
favorite
on the
song, too.
whole cycle that like actually gets to like a forte, to like
Right. Yeah.
in this in the middle where there's a like wall of feedback drone type
like
stuff.
goes all noisy, and
Yeah.
then it comes
Comes
back down
back down
though.
to the
Yeah,
intro,
like the
yeah.
dynamics of that song, it literally just
Yeah.
it's got like a whole arc to it, which
Yeah.
is really great. A Child's Question was another one where A Child's Question, sorry, July was another one that initially I hated that song, but then I listened to it a couple more times. I think that's the one, the Lick the Toad lyrics in that song.
That yes,
Which
A
song?
Child's Question in July that's the one that sounds like it's like the Renaissance Fair song.
Nursery rhyme.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
Very
It's like
ring around the rosy.
where
Yeah,
she's
yeah.
like, "Tell me which one licked
Yeah.
the toad."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I said it's
Yeah.
the most witchy track.
Yes,
like, it's
yes,
very,
yes.
It
It's
sounds like
conjury.
she's casting a spell.
Yeah.
This was my least favorite track on here because
Okay.
it did like it's because like the
Yeah.
rest of it, it's like the lyrics are already doing that for doing
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that imagery for me.
Yeah.
So when you do this, it's like ba-ba-dum, ba-da-da-da-dum,
Yeah.
dum-da-dum, da-da-da-da-dum. It's just a little too on the nose for me. So that was like the only track on here where I was like, I don't love this, or like it didn't really like, that but stand out to me. But it's such a interesting album because it really just broods for 40 minutes until you get to that last piece that really like crescendos in a big way. It's very interesting.
Are you guys familiar with the album, David Bowie's last album, Black Star?
No,
Because that's another one where sonically it reminded me a lot of, because it's like you got to really listen in with everything to like hear all the layers of stuff going on, and like little things pop out of the texture. Sometimes there's like on this album, there's like a synth line that'll happen, but you have to be like, okay, that's an interest. Why didn't they have that higher in the mix? But it's like supposed to be so subtle in the background.
You know what's weird was like, so I listened to this album in headphones, and then I also had it playing just on my laptop, and the listening experience was so different.
Oh, yeah.
Because the headphones obviously give you like the full range, but like coming through just the laptop speakers, the frequencies are all different. So it's like, wait a minute, this sounds completely it's like the same songs, but you're like, wait a minute, this sounds different. What the hell's going on? You know, it played like a weird trick on you listening back in different
Oh yeah, I
ways,
definitely played it
you
on
know?
my phone. It sounded, I think, terrible compared to headphones. Headphone was so
Yeah,
ideal.
you have to have the
because
headphones, though.
it's
That's the
warm
best
and
one.
woodsy, and like it sounds so live in the room. The vocals, like she has a great voice, but she has a great voice because it's such a natural voice. Like she does falsetto type singing. She lets it be shaky, or she lets it be kind of stressed and like falling off the edge at times. She's not like a Beyonce vocalist. She's a very like true, just sing my songs.
Right.
And,
Did you guys pick up on before we leave, I wanted to ask like what you guys thought. Did you guys pick up on the other thing that ran through this whole album, the allusions to the Wordle?
I did hear that many times. I wanted to read along the lyrics. But I was
So
like, what?
the lyrics to me, the lyrics were so, it was so, that this is when I started to get into the album, is because I'm like, you hear Elvis's Love Me Tender, and it's even interpolated in this album. And so like the Elvis character, the Wyman Elvis character together, and then the Wordle aspect of it all. They're like, I was like, is Wordle an Old English word? Is the game Wordle being referenced in a old modern way, in a poetic nature? I was so confused by the like literal like poetic vining of this record. It was so dense, and I was trying to, for me, I was just trying to unlock like what we're like talking about on this record. And for me, I'm coming up with like boy girl thing, but like it obviously seems much more dense than that, and that's what I was most interesting at. And I was wondering if you guys had any thoughts on the Wordle, if it was a modern use or like a double meaning.
I wasn't sure, but what you're saying about like what is what on this album, this album is it's accessible. There's melodies, and it's not like a burden to listen to, but it is very like kind of almost like an avant-garde classical folk music song cycle.
Yes.
Because so many themes come in and out. It's like, it seems like a piece you would listen to all at once, 40 minutes, in a quiet amphitheater, and then at the end...
It's almost like this is the other
you know?
thing. It's almost, I can't imagine listening to it now that I like really got into the
like picking out a song.
Yeah, like I couldn't listen to like what, like you listen to one song because you're like, oh well, this is missing the later reference of like when she like really goes to like the full on Elvis "Love Me Tender" at the end, and he's singing it with her. And
it was like folksy. I want to say opera form. You know, like that music, like where things are self-referential and stuff.
And then the Elvis part too was almost like mixing it back into like Americana, like thought wise with the classic like English like nursery rhymes. That was the layer that I found the most interesting about this album, and I don't know if I fully have unpacked it in my head as you can see.
Well, there's a lot of male voices you hear sprinkled throughout this. A couple of them are actors, so I feel like this is maybe like something that is going to be staged as like a, you know, I don't know, like a sung play type of thing. I'm not quite sure.
Yeah,
especially because it's based on a poem she had written. Like, it's so many layers to it. Like, I don't know.
It definitely made for one of the most like interesting. Like, oh, what am I listening to? Like this, I haven't listened to anything like this, like at least in a long time or before.
Easy listening, but very artsy.
Yeah, very artsy. Yeah. I'd say on somewhat of a cutting edge of something somewhere. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So ratings then, if we're gonna go on to ratings, I know this one feels unfair to rate.
I don't know like where. Like I'd put this at, it's so well done for like what it is though. I'm gonna say it's like 8.5 for me. The lyrics have me like thinking about it. It's really like thought provoking, and it, like we said, well done. The production's interesting, and lyrically, just go and unpack like everything in there. I thought it was one of the most interesting things I've read this year, as far as lyrics go. I don't know if it's like fully my taste, but I really liked it. I'm gonna say 8.5.
Yeah,
Respect.
I'm just gonna go with a solid 7. I feel like I had a hard time digesting this record, and I don't not enjoy this style, but I don't really see this as being an album that I would kind of go back, because you're right. It's something that it's like you have to listen to it in its entirety in order to get the full effect, and I don't know that I would want to re-listen to this in its entirety. You know what I mean? But I respect it, and it's that same question that's like, is it a good album? Yes. Do I like it? That's something you kind of have to wrestle with, because you can still you can look at a piece of art and be like, and respect it and understand that like this is a beautiful piece of art. But if it doesn't resonate with you, it doesn't resonate with you. It's not that it's bad or good. You know what I'm saying? So that's where I'm at. I'm gonna give it a solid 7. Maybe I'll revisit it in the fall and see if I feel any different.
Maybe it's a summer 7 and an autumn 8.
Yeah, maybe, perhaps. We'll see.
As Mike always says, like he's like, you could put this around on the campfire.
This
fall, you put this on a Halloween party. I
Drink
think.
some apple cider,
and
baby.
It would play well
around a bubbling cauldron.
Yeah.
Same thoughts. I like some of her work more than this, because I like her more like soul, almost like electronica, strangeness stuff. This was excellent though, and I'm super into this. And like 40 minutes headphone, like so much stuff to get in your ears. This is a strong 8.5 for me. I want to give it a 9, but I'm giving it 8.5 because like this, I may not go back to a million times, but I'm going to go back to it.
Yeah. Give it another shot. Let us know in the comments below what you think. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Do you love this album? Do you hate this album? What's your rating? Let us know in the comments below.